as you approach, they look like a fang. It's a fang of a tooth. It's one of those places that you steer clear of. In all my sailing career, the roughest water that I have encountered is at the Farallones.
It's not for humans. With the flies, the birds, the smell, the sounds of the seals, it's another world. The shelf stops right there. So you have basically deep water waves, and the first place it hits is the southwest shore. So there's constant large swells there. It's notorious for that.
I wake up at 6 in the morning and I look out my window and it's foggy. I knew at that point it was a bust. What do I do? So I decided to go through with it because every trip out the gate is great training for me. It's a huge learning experience. So I set off, and sure enough, 10 hours later, I come back in with the tide. It's over. A grandmother had told her 6-year-old granddaughter about me and my mission. They had read about it in the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper. It was front and back story that particular day. And the 6-year-old had asked her mother to drive her down to meet me in the marina as I was coming in. I had barely docked the boat when this family is upon me. And the 6-year-old looks at me with that eyes lit up like I'm magical, like I'm a Disney princess. And she gets nudged by her mother and she comes forward and she hands me this note. It's written on pink paper. And this note says, "I admire you for trying. You will do it next time." Heart melt. And I was reminded with that pink note why I am doing what I'm doing.
You can't do it in one day. You've got to do it in between tides, and you've got to use the tides to get out there and get back. And so if you've got a sea anchor, you can stop. And you can stop and have very light, a small drift when you're trying to sleep. But you can't stay asleep very long out there.
It's a very powerful piece of water that's not easy to navigate. There's not that many people who want to spend 5 days on a rowboat. It's a feat.
Yeah, the second time I set off at night and everything went really well. I mean, really well. It was like I was tracking straight to the Farallons, and I think for about 6 hours, everything was just sweet. It was going really well. And then I had a nap. And because I was with the tide and I was drifting in a favourable direction at that moment, I didn't deploy the sea anchor. And that was a terrible mistake. In fact, that cost me that attempt, because in not putting out the sea anchor, when I woke up, I had boomeranged back on the tide towards land and lost most of the miles that I had just rowed. Determined to not give up, I persevered through the rest of that day, but it was a bust. By midnight, I realised that the tide was going out now. And I was desperately tired and facing another night at sea in the shipping lanes. I called the Coast Guard and they offered to come and get me.
In the early years, the eggs out there were harvested by people to feed the gold miners as they were coming in. And that's how it became famous. And they didn't think about making it a sanctuary for many, many years after that.
Predators have become the sharks. There's no humans, it's not polluted, and it's a very quiet place. Shark season is basically, they start arriving in August and they leave in December. We've been going out there trying to chase sharks to see them for many, many years that we've, never have.
I think she can make it because she's very determined.
So I'm trying to set a record rowing around the Farallons. No one's ever been out this far since... nice rowboat anyway.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks.
Is it a time favorite?
No one's ever done it. I went round an island I couldn't see, the southeast Farallon, in the fog, and now I've just gone round a marker that isn't there. Such is this record, the Farallon record. Yes! Yeah, so here's what Guinness wrote. We're afraid to say that we cannot accept your proposal for a Guinness World Record title. We have looked at your proposal in detail, but as you yourself mentioned, it would be a first. A first is not necessarily in itself a record. Records have to be breakable, measurable, and comparable.
Okay.
Which is a little mind-boggling.
Yeah,